I may turn this into a series. I don't know, but uh, during your during the process of you trying to get a transplant, they are going to need certain things from you. They're going to need you to visit their clinic. They're going to need you to talk to their doctors, their surgeons. They're going to need you, but I don't want to say most important, but just as important as all that, they're going to need you to talk to their psychiatrist. Now, with the psychiatrist, they're going to ask you like a series of questions to try to evaluate whether or not you're emotionally stable to receive a kidney. But if you are also emotionally stable to continue the quite possible, years and years and years of waiting for a kidney. These sort of things are very important for them to understand because they don't want to give you a kidney and then if you have like a series of very dark thoughts or you plan on ending yourself, they don't want to give a kidney to a person like that because they just wasted a kidney they could give to somebody who is going to go on to live a full life and with a full life that's going to take care of the kidney the way it's supposed to be taken care of. Now, with me, my policy is always honesty is the best policy. So I talked to my psychiatrist a couple of weeks ago, and I would not recommend lying to them because psychiatrists, they have gone through years of training and they know when somebody is lying to them. So I just wouldn't recommend it. I don't think that's a good idea. Like if you're just putting on a happy face just to prove to the psychiatrist at your transplant center. I think I said dialysis earlier, but it's not a smart idea. There are ways that you can express yourself about how you feel about this whole process without pretending. And I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. Even if you hate it, just say that you hate it. I would not recommend trying to turn this thing into some magical experience if that's not how you feel. I can tell you that's not how I feel. This is easily the worst thing that has ever happened to me, like hands down. Even worse than when I went through chemo and HLH because those were like finite events. But with this, with kidney disease and going through transplant, kidney disease is a little bit more permanent. It's a lot more permanent. This is just a permanent thing that I have to deal with now for the rest of my life. And it's not fun. Every psychiatrist is different in the questions that they ask you, but a lot of the general consensus is they're trying to establish whether or not you're balanced emotionally, and they'd like to ascertain whether or not you're stable. I've read stories about people who get kidneys and they go through this tremendous amount of guilt because someone gave them a kidney and they feel bad about potentially taking away a part of their life or part of the other person from them. I've read stories of individuals who get the kidneys and go right back to doing the same bad habits that they did before, which damaged their kidneys if that was the case. Because rather looking at the kidney as a treatment in this finite thing that they have to take care of, they view it as a cure. That's why it's important not to view any of this as a cure. Dialysis is not a cure. Transplant is not a cure. But the individual thought it was a cure. So they thought that it was okay for them to go back to doing the same destructive things they did before. And then the kidneys end up failing again. And then they're right back in the same position that they were when they started. Transplant centers and psychiatrists, they want to weed out those kinds of people so that way they can at least make an attempt. What people don't understand about this is that transplant centers have a million ways they could unlist you, or rather, make you inactive on the list. There's like a million ways. One thing goes wrong, and they will put you on the inactive list real quick. You'll still accumulate time, but you are ineligible for kidney transplant, and they'll do that to you real quick. So when you're speaking to the psychiatrist, I feel it's very important to be honest. But there are ways that you can do that. With me, for example, I told the psychiatrist this. This is what I said. Listen, I hope that nothing that I say to you today has any influence on me getting a kidney in the future. I'm going to be honest with you about my feelings. I'm going to be very open with how I feel about this. When you tell them that, that makes them more receptive to what you're about to say. It makes them more open-minded to not give you the same old song and dance about staying positive or getting a part-time job or any of that other stuff that they tell. That's routine for them to say. It gives them time to understand your relationship with dialysis. I think expressing yourself about the dark stuff is crucially important to being able to deal with this. It can't be all sunshine and rainbows because that's not what this is. And I don't care how you try to rationalize it. I don't care what you say. If you don't acknowledge the dark stuff, the anger, the resentment, the pain, the frustration, the sadness, the despair, if you don't express all that stuff, it's going to manifest itself in other ways. So it's crucially important to acknowledge those feelings and accept that those are things that you are going to experience. I believe that it is unhealthy and it is unwise to push those feelings down and put on a happy face. Because that, I don't think that's never helped me. If treatments are frequently not going well, you're on your like fourth year of waiting for a transplant, and you see yourself slowly deteriorating, like over years and years of waiting, you'd get kind of pissed. I'd be kind of pissed off. I'm kind of pissed off now. Sitting back and watching that happen, it's not fun. And there's nothing that you can do to stop it the longer you stay on dialysis. Because dialysis is not meant to make you feel better. It's meant to keep you alive. That's all that it's designed to do. It's just keeping you around long enough for you to get to a transplant. One question, though, that the psychiatrist has asked me, I've seen the psychiatrist twice now. Last week will be the second time. One question that the dialysis, or not the dialysis, the psychiatrist at the transplant center did ask me was, do you have suicidal thoughts or tendencies? And honestly, I can say no. I do not have suicidal thoughts or tendencies. But I did say that I do think about stopping on a regular basis. I think about stopping regularly. Now, I guess that could be interpreted as suicide, but it's just the the grind of watching everything special about you just sort of just fading away and just wanting a break from from doing this. Just wanting just like a week off. I think about stopping all the time, and I know what that means. I think about stopping kind of in the same way people think about, well, what would happen if I died today? Kind of like that. But do I think about stopping? Yeah, I think about stopping all the time, especially on the harder days. You start thinking about the future and how long it's going to take for you to get a kidney. And that creates a lot of frustration. And that's what I told the psychiatrist when I spoke to her. Another question that they ask is, do you have a support system? Do you have people in your life that you can talk to about how you feel about this? Do you have a therapist? Because they do not recommend that you just try to muscle through this. Hence, going back to what I'm constantly saying in these videos about staying positive. If you are trying to stay positive, but that's not how you really feel, that's not going to serve you very well. I highly recommend that if you can find a psychiatrist on the cheap, or if your insurance covers it, you should speak to a psychiatrist. You should speak to a licensed professional about how you feel to get these emotions out of you. Because just saying you're going to stay positive and then just faking it is going to hurt you in the long run. And all those emotions that you don't want to acknowledge, they're just going to come back even stronger. That sort of thing can lead to dialysis fatigue and burnout and emotional eruptions where you just stop doing your treatment for a week and then you go back to the hospital because you just don't care anymore. Listen, I hate this. I hate all of this, but I acknowledge that I hate this. I don't pretend that I don't. I told the psychiatrist the same thing. I am not going to pretend as if this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because that would be a lie. Another question that you will get from the psychiatrist at the transplant center and social workers at your dialysis center is your environment safe? Because if you are in an unsafe environment where you are the subject of abuse, or you have someone that's in your home that is unsafe, that can make staying on your schedule for dialysis treatments very difficult. So that's a pretty important question that they ask you. I expressed to her that I don't have to be happy about being on dialysis. And she told me that she's right. I don't have to be happy about being on dialysis, which was great confirmation for me that I am not the only person that feels this way. And there are professionals telling me that there are a lot of people out there that feel the same way that I do. It's like I said before, every psychiatrist is different, and they're going to have different criteria that they're looking for personally, but there are also some routine things that they have to ask you to make sure that you're in the right headspace to stay active on the transplant list. I would highly recommend that you always be honest about how you feel about all of this.